Welcome, climate viewers. This is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News at ClimateViewer.com, ClimateViewer.org, and WeatherModificationHistory.com. Today, we're going to crack a very big topic, and a lot of people have requested this. So, we're going to cover Monsanto and the link to weather modification. And this is a real link, not all the hokey stuff you get everywhere else. So, I have a question commonly asked to me. What does geoengineering and cloud seeding have to do with the bees, or have to do with agriculture, or how does it relate to a lot of things? We're going to cover how geoengineering and weather modification are related to Monsanto pesticide spraying and its effects on agriculture and bees in a real, factual, pragmatic format. So, first of all, I'd like to give a shout out to beheroic.com, beheroic.com. That's BEE heroic.com. This is an activist friend of mine, Nikki Florio. Interviewed her at the American Meteorological Society's 98th annual meeting this past January when I attended the weather modification conference there. So Nikki and I were able to, let me get this out of the way. I can't see what I'm doing. We're able to discuss, what that link might be and, that sort of thing. And she has a nice geoengineering page right here, devoted to looking into that. And, for me, I said, that I really got to crack this one because, I don't like to give people false hope. I don't like to fill people with FUD or, any of that. So I wanted something that was tangible, but not that I was pandering. You know what I mean? You got to walk a fine line. But luckily, as the universe would have it, I ran into a doctor from MIT who mentioned my HARP research on MIT's university's Climate X website. So I was pretty stoked about that. I'm like, wow, doctor from MIT says my HARP research is right on the money, and literally quoted me on MIT's website. I'm overjoyed. Well, I talked to the dude on the phone a couple times, and his name is Dr. Rick Shankman. He's a CEO of Fantas Lube. Pretty cool stuff. Non-toxic, carbon-based lubricant. Anyway, so he was discussing a lot of things. We discussed a lot of things on the phone, but then later on, he emailed me an article that really got my gears going. And before we get to that, I got this little nugget from my vault I'd like to share with you. Maybe you guys have seen it before, but back before everybody knew me as Jim Lee, I just used to hang out on the internet. It's called resonated.com. I was just resonated. Nobody knew who I was. And I made this little infographic. Take a good go gander at this. So, jet engine exhaust analysis by subtractive chromatography. And who would it be but none other than Monsanto Research Corporation, controlled by U.S. Air Force School of Aerospace Medicine. And this is Monsanto testing jet engine exhausts. Isn't that interesting? So this is all the way back 1977. Monsanto was in the jet engine, industry as it were. Just an interesting side note for those who are looking for credible links between Monsanto and all things weather. But this is really the tale for today. I'm going to drop this in chat for everybody playing along at home. So, genetically modified weather, the tale of frostban synthetic bacteria. Now, many people don't don't really fully understand what's going on with planes making clouds. And planes making clouds is most commonly referred to as either chemtrails or geoengineering. Unfortunately, those are both pretty inaccurate terms. They're very broad terms. They're in fact so broad that they could mean many different things to many people. So I generally shy away from terms like that. So what I would say is that, in fact, it's more about cloud seeding, which is weather modification. And weather modification, page not found. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Really, that link didn't work. It's probably because it's got TM in the URL. MIT tries to bury Dr. Shankman's articles for obvious reason when you go read them. He is known as the Hammer, as it were, on campus. So, genetically modified weather, the tale of Frostman. What most people don't understand is that in order to make a cloud, you need a cloud seed. And what most debunkers would say is, well, it's just harmless water vapor. But the real situation is that it's water vapor stuck on a seed. So that seed is either called a cloud condensation nuclei, CCN, a ice nucleating particle, INP. It's a new term. I hate it. I say CCN, or cloud seed, which is simple, more redneck you can make it, the more I like it. So cloud seed's pretty darn good. If we want to get more redneck, we could just call it dust, because what is dust? It is a particle that is free floating in the air. And what is that particle? It is an aerosol. So now you know all the terminology. These are what's at the center of that water vapor them their debunkers be talking about. But they're what's most important in climate change today, because climate scientists know jack all about aerosols. So dust, ice, dusty plasmas, all of these things are an issue for me personally, and they're not well understood and very seldom talked about when it comes to climate scientists talking to politicians. But amongst themselves, they're the talk of the day, because they really are a huge gaping hole in their computer models. So why is this important? Because Monsanto and companies like them have really screwed up things with their genetically modified organisms and their pesticides. So one of the biggest cloud seeds around that most people don't know about is bacteria. So often on chemtrail websites, they talk about, aluminum and barium. That's about all you ever hear about. So aluminum, and barium. Yes, that stuff's there. And yes, it contributes to cirrus cloud formation, but we won't get into that right yet. What we're talking about here is how does, if we, the people of, the anthropogenic, I hate that word. We of the global warming age, if we were taken out of the equation, how would clouds be made? I mean, would there be clouds at all? Jeez. I mean, most people would say, oh God, industrial age, we've screwed everything up. Well, it turns out that the normal water cycle should, look a little something like this. Water evaporates from the ocean. Transpiration from plants, so seeds from plants, believe it or not. Cloud seeding from trees. Did you know that trees cloud seed? I mean, raise your hand if you knew that at home. So because you need water vapor and something for it to stick to, it's a two-part process, like a handshake. You got to have the water vapor, you got to have something for it to stick to. And if enough of it sticks to the dirt, the dust, the aerosol, the cloud seed, the cloud condensation nuclei, condensation occurs. And then guess what? if that thing gets big enough, it falls on the ground. And when it falls on the ground, it runs down a mountain, in a stream, or through aquifers, all that stuff. But regardless, ends up back in the ocean. Repeat the cycle. That's the water cycle for those who've never heard this. The problem is this cycle has been grossly interrupted. And it's been called the blue gold rush, or water will be to the next century what oil was to the last century. So while a lot of people talk about how Monsanto has aluminum resistant seeds, I think they're really missing the big picture here. So that's what we're going to focus on tonight. So frostban originally was a genetically engineered variant of Pseudomonas syringae. Now, Pseudomonas syringae is, let me blow this up for everybody watching here. Pseudomonas syringae is one of the predominant cloud seeds on the planet. It is a bacteria that is found in most farm plants, most, ground plants all over the planet. The problem is that genetically modified organisms, which are designed to prevent frost. Do you get where we're going here? The reason that Pseudomonas syringae is so important is because it creates frost. Problem for big crops is that bacteria that makes ice is making it on our plants, but if we kill it, it's not going to make ice in the sky. And that ice is what makes the clouds. Surprise! So right now we're talking about a real take it to court, show the evidence, show me the real evidence, gentlemen. A real link between Monsanto's companies like Monsanto, not just Monsanto, because they're just one of many, who over the last 80 years have come up with this crap. But basically genetically modified GMO plants, and the pesticides that are sprayed on them, like ones that are designed to kill ice forming bacteria specifically, are interrupting the hydrological cycle of the planet, right? Because without that water cycle, which is kind of important, what will happen? Weather modification. Of course, weather modification. So there's your first real big aha moment. So if we have increased use of pesticides worldwide, and the plants are engineered themselves to destroy these ice forming bacteria, you're going to have less clouds and you're going to have less rain. Less rain equals more trouble, equals more weather modification. I think this is a brilliant link, and it's a provable one. There is mountains of evidence on how bacteria form clouds. I'm going to get to that in just one second, but the flip side of that is that here's an article on ClimateViewer.com dated 2014. Biofuels could not help climate change. And in that, we talk about how, if less residue is removed from crops, there's less decrease in soil carbon, but it's similar to smaller biofuel energy yields. And, basically, if we stop stripping crops bare, because what's going on now is much what happened in the Dust Bowl. So it's kind of a two-step process. Not only did we kill all the bacteria, poison it off to where it's gone. We also strip the ground bare. So that leads to massive erosion. And erosion is what? Aluminum, more aluminum. So while it's kind of funny and sad all at the same time that anybody who says the word chemtrail or geoengineering has this overly ad nauseum focus on aluminum and barium, they kind of completely missed the mark because, I've never heard anybody talk about this. But really, that's what happened in the Dust Bowl, was a whole bunch of crustal aluminum, mineral dust, erosion from monoculture crops covered in pesticides. Oh, by the way, GMO monoculture crops, no Three Sisters method, no leaving the husks to cover the fields to stop the erosion. They scrape all that up and turn it into gasoline. You've seen it at your local gas pump. This gas contains 10% ethanol. So that's a real climate change issue. That's a big one. Interrupting the water cycle. Huge no-no. But none of this would have really ever made it to the climatards who create computer models and swear global warming is real. Man-made, man-caused, anthropogenic global warming is certainly CO2 based in their computer models. But they don't know jack about clouds. And this was recently proven by Jasper Kirkby at CERN. Everybody knows CERN, right? When he did the cloud project. And in his project, cloud shows pre-industrial skies cloudier than we thought. And they had this huge cloud chamber, real fancy stuff. That, holy crap, we were completely wrong in all of our computer models, because in our computer models, we thought that, pre-industrial skies were much less cloudy, that with sulfuric acid played a major role in cloud formation. And therefore, dinosaurs didn't have it as cloudy as we do, because obviously smokestacks and pollution are making it more cloudy. Well, they were wrong. Turns out trees are very good at making clouds. Big surprise. And this was just figured out. I mean, it's kind of laughable. Like, did CERN just debunk climate change? I mean, seriously, Judith Curry, if you haven't read her, epic stuff on Judith Curry's blog. Please check her out. She's freaking amazing. But basically, they're surprised by this. They're like, Earth's climate may not warm as quickly as expected, suggests new cloud studies. And I mean, this is grossly underreported, of course. But you gotta deal with it. So climate scientists have assumed that since pre-industrial times, there've been large increase in cloud cover, which thought to have an overall cooling effect by reflecting sunlight back into space. They thought that it was mainly sulfuric acid, but they were wrong. And this is the important part. Kirkby says this really does touch on the Gaia hypothesis. He refers to the theory that Earth's life behaves as a single organism that tends to preserve itself. It's a beautiful mechanism for trees to control their environment. And what they did was, in that chamber, they used a aerosol from trees, from a coniferous plant, galactic cosmic rays, and water vapor, and made a cloud. Boom. So everybody knows I'm a big Lorax fan. So love the trees. So this, back to that reference to the Dust Bowl earlier. Oddly enough, what did we do to fix climate change 1.0? we planted trees. So we did something called the Great Plains Shelter Belt. I'm over here on weathermodificationhistory.com, 1934 to 1942. By 1942, 220 million trees had been planted, stretching out 18,600 miles in a 100-mile wide zone from Canada to the Brazos River. Even as of 2007, the federal response to the Dust Bowl, including the Prairie States Forestry Program, which planted the Great Plains Shelter Belt, and the creation of the Soil Erosion Service, represents the largest and most focused effort of the U.S. government to address an environmental problem ever. And you can see the map there. The black areas are where they planted the trees. So to fix climate change in the 30s and all the erosion caused by all the crops, caused by, settlers gone wild, we planted 220 million trees. I want everybody to say it with me. Plant a tree. Go talk to the next time you see somebody talking about global warming, ask them, are we going to plant trees? Because why? They make clouds. Jasper Kirkby, CERN, proven. They're important. We killed all the bacteria that made clouds, with all the pesticides and GMOs. If we kill all the bacteria and then we cut down all the trees, because everybody knows about deforestation and how bad that is. I mean, is this like intentional trying to destroy the water cycle thing here? I mean, is that the real way they plan on depopulating the planet? I don't know. You tell me in the comments. I'd like to know what your thoughts are. But I see a serious problem here where climate change, they only talk about CO2, nitrous oxide, greenhouse gases. And what really miffs me is the righteous nature that they do it while never acknowledging any of the concerns I have, like plastic in the ocean, which stops the evaporation, deforestation, and GMOs and pesticides and biofuels, clear cutting, and which causes erosion. All of these shut off transpiration and condensation. No clouds. So all of these things are being interrupted, which is leading to less precipitation. So really, it's like there's like a war on water. And I don't understand why everybody's kind of just missing the point there. To make it even crazier, if you really want to link up Monsanto and weather modification even further, just recently I did a video titled Hurricane Harvey Cloud Seeding Explained and USDA Electrified Water Experiment. Just 1 second while I take a drink. All right, I got somebody saying signal interrupts. Okay. So I've changed my internets. I'm at my new house. I've been moving for the last 2 weeks, and I got a big fat internet connection, but I'm testing it right now. I'm broadcasting in 1080p for the first time. If it drags when I'm switching screens, let me know. If it drags when I'm not switching screens, seriously, let me know in chat, guys. This is test run category here. Appreciate you. Thank you, Daryl. So in this video, Hurricane Harvey cloud seeding explained and USDA electrified water experiment. This is June 2017. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, and here's the original video, I had gone through and timestamped this entire video. So like you could go and I made like 22 comments and each comment had timestamps and I quoted some of it. And then their video got like 4,800 views. They said in the video, please share our Facebook, in these videos so that people will show us some attention. Well, I was like, I even commented, hey, you're going to get a lot of attention. And none of their videos have ever gotten more than 300 views. So I know that every one of you guys knows me personally now. And I was just in Austin, Texas at the Weather Modification Conference at the Austin Convention Center. I probably should have come down and saw y'all, but of course I got the flu while I was there. Thank you very much to the airline industry. I hate flying. Regardless. This is the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, and they are regulating the Weather Modification Advisory Committee. This is in Austin, Texas. Boom. I probably should have went. Dang, I should have went and done. So much to do, so little time. Regardless, this is their Weather Modification Conference right here, the public meeting they have. Details on that thing right here. This was held August 24th, 2017. Blowing that up for you guys at home. Come on. What's going on here? Am I there? Zoom, fool. Zoom. Okay. There we go. Now everybody can read it. So, Thursday, August 24th, and 2017. You scroll down here. And you see official innovation. This is Section C, exemption to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, TAES, for experimental cloud seeding in Texas during the summer of 2017. And I'm like, what? What is the U.S. Department of Agriculture doing experimental cloud seeding? First of all, I thought the U.S. government didn't pay for experiments. They only paid for research. That's a first big one. I know that the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation regulates all the cloud seeding programs on the West Coast. I have not seen anything like this verified out in public in this such a way. So this piqued my interest and I had to look into it, of course. And I watched the video, got the guy's name. Well, it turns out his name is Wesley C. Hoffman, a.k.a. Clint. And looking him up on Clint, and he's an agricultural engineer who specializes in spraying insecticides, aerial application technology for sustainable crop production, deployed warfighter protection research program. He was designing pesticides that go into the clothing that our warfighters, our soldiers are going to wear. Imagine your jacket has malaria mosquito repellent in it. So mosquitoes that carry malaria won't bite through the uniform. Built in. Don't sweat on it, but I mean, hey, probably safe. Develop improved timing of application technology to reduce exposure of pesticides to honeybees. Oh, well, he did do that. And he does mapping and stuff. But regardless, this dude is a Monsanto ex-worker, Monsanto dude. Okay. What they were doing was using an electrified cloud seeding sprayer, as seen right here. It's an electro sprayer. Boom. So Wesley Hoffman is actually talking about detail right there. Good fix for production. Oh my God! Look at this poor kid. A pesticide sprayer. He's like, "Oh, mommy, this is burning my nose. I probably shouldn't have done that." Anyway, so yeah. Does it creep you out that the U.S. Department of Agriculture's agricultural research program is modifying the weather over Texas with the same system that they use to spray mosquitoes? Yeah, so that's from the last video, and I mean, that's Monsanto modifying the weather. So they took the same sprayer. I'm in South Carolina. I have to deal with these things all the time, and they come around and they do what's called adulticide, and they spray these foggers all through the neighborhoods. You can hear the trucks going, wah. Yeah, that's a much better impression than the second one, not the first one. And I literally and they're like, oh, it's all safe, and all that. But I literally run to my windows and slam them shut as fast as I can. Cause I mean, what do you want to coat your whole couch in that? But yeah, they go around and they spray this stuff all the time. And it's what the device is called an electrostatic sprayer. So we talked about cloud seeds. We talked about water vapor. That's all the debunkers, chemtrail debunkers want to talk about is water vapor. The third missing element, there's a third part to this whole water cycle that we have not discussed, and that's the electrical part. So messing with the electrical circuits of the planet, messing with the electrical balance in the sky is another way to affect weather in a great way. I don't want to really derail this conversation from Monsanto and the water cycle, but electrostatic foggers are supplying the static, the sticking power. Having water vapor and having something for it to stick to is great, but not having the energy to make it stick, it's all useless. They're just going to hang out together up there in the sky and say, what you doing? I'm doing nothing, man. See ya. But if you have that static electricity, anybody who's ever rubbed a balloon on the carpet and then stuck it to their hair, you know what I'm talking about. That's static. So this static energy in the sky is what makes water vapor stick to cloud seeds or aerosols. And, there have been many people who talked about this, even back to, Wilhelm Reich, Tesla, Bernard Vonnegut, that there were people doing electrified sand tests in the 30s, trying to make it cloud seed with electrified sand. So there are a lot of people who understand the importance of the electrical part. Just unfortunately, it's just not discussed enough. So what I'm trying to get to you is that weather modification on a pretty grand scale is largely to blame from, the lack of natural rainfall and demand by water companies, mostly cities, people who own aquifers, like the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, SMUD, PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric. These are the people paying for weather modification. You can actually see these reports simply by going to this Google Fusion table. I'm over here on ClimateViewer.org. And as you can see up on the screen now, I have weather modification projects from 2004 to 2012. These are the actual weather modification projects reported to NOAA because the government says you have to in order to remain legal. And this is what they look like. Isn't it interesting? It's almost completely on the West Coast. Mainly through the breadbasket, but whatever. Mostly West Coast. So West Coast strapped with water. Interestingly enough, that is also generally where the drought monitor is going to show an increase. So here's your water strapped areas. I've now put up on the screen weather modification projects 2004 to 12 and drought monitor. Final little link right here. We're going to try to break everything today. I'm going to go to the fossil fuel section and we're going to put on the Fracking America. And pause. So there you go. So this is really a great little causal relationship, as we can see. Bright freaking red drought. Lots of freaking fracking wells. So everything has multiple causes. I'm not trying to say that this Monsanto link, the pesticide GMO link, is the only cause of the water cycle problems. This is a pretty darn big one, though. Drilling, fossil fuel, just in general. Because when fracking requires the amounts of water as seen here, that tends to lead to big drought and also leads to cloud seeding. So as you can see here, PGCD Precipitation Enhancement Program, size 6,378 miles, operator Panhandle Groundwater Conservation District. Does anybody find it funny that the guys paying for modifying the weather are called the Panhandle Groundwater Conservation District in a district with that much fracking and drilling? And each of these wells can require several million gallons of water per day. The water pumped out of those wells is radioactive. The socks coming out of those fracking wells have been found in gas station bathrooms. They are radioactive because nobody knows where to put all this radioactive waste. So because of fracking, not only are we in big time water problems, nice little fracking cluster over here. Gotta love that stuff. And this, by the way, my fracking map, which is all of these little oil wells with the gas cans, this is less than 10% of them. And I'll prove that to you right now. Let me go back here to satellite. And let me go come up here to the drop monitor. We're going to turn that off. We're going to go in here. We're going to zoom in. And as you can see, that's a bunch of fracking wells. But really, it's much worse than what you actually see. Look. Soak it in. As far as the eye can see. See all these pads? Every one of these white dots is a drilling well. You see how I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there, but there's actually like 30 or 40 of them right here that have no dots. This is what fracking actually looks like. Not the fuzzy, it's green energy, vast wastelands where nobody will ever want to live again. Would you ever build a neighborhood in that area? I mean, look at that. Look at that. As far as the eye can see. Whew. That's what it really looks like, people. So that's why we have these huge water shortages. Another good example. But we're going to go back to what are we going to do about this water cycle problem? Well, obviously, they've chosen to engineer the weather. Back in 1949, Irving P. Crick invented something called the ground-based cloud seeder. And it looks like this. Let's go back. I'm going to switch back to the black. It makes it easier for me to see. I'm doing all of this on ClimateViewer.org. It's ClimateViewer 3D. So let me get back out of this. 11. And show my workbench. And I'm going to get rid of the fracking wells by hitting remove. And we're going to go to add data and ClimateViewer data and weather modification. Uno momento while this thing freezes and loads the Fracking America map again. Oh, come on. We'll close that. So, up on the screen right now, I'm going to bring that back up in just a second, is the NOAA reported weather modification activities 2004 to 2012. And this is a Google Fusion table that I made. And it has a map also of the exact same thing. So you can see all the different projects, where they happened, who paid for it. Things like Sacramento Municipal Utility District paid for precipitation enhancement here at this location and 192 square miles, yada, yada, yada. You go down the list, you'll see things like ski resorts, you name it, Idaho Power Company. This is the real. Los Angeles, you want to know? Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Yes, they pay for weather modification. Upper American River Project, snowpack augmentation. They pay Weather Modification Incorporated to do it at this location, yada, yada. So all of these reports are now available. They've been on ClimateViewer.com since about 2013. And I'm trying to get these updated again, of course. But let's go back to the map real quick, because that Fracking America map just crashed me out. I'm going to have to make it to where the previews aren't loaded automatically, because some of these maps are just way too big. Anyway, so we're going to do cloud seeding generators. So everybody can see what that looks like. So this is a cloud seeding generator right here. Let me open that in a new window. This is a high-tech one. This is a redneck one. Pretty simple. High-tech one's got all these fancy gears and gizmos, but it basically goes like this. You need fire, something to burn, silver iodide particularly there, and then boom, fire to put it in the sky. And over here, same thing. Solar panel, satellite communication, fire, silver iodide, put it in the sky. I got big propane tanks on the ground. So computer controlled. Why am I talking about this? Because these cloud seeding generators are all over the West Coast. I'm going to turn them on, all the ones I've been able to map so far, and let you take a good look at that. But here's a flare tree. This is what they're like when they burn. And this is one in Santa Barbara, California. Try to provide the images for you guys so you can see where I get this stuff from. Idaho Power's cloud seeding projects. Here's where we're flying. Here's where our towers are, and you can see little details. Cloud seeding generators owned by Idaho Power Company, operated by, and then the green ones are non-Idaho Power Company, modifying the weather every day from October to March of every winter. So here's where they are so far that I've been able to find. And as you can see very quickly, that's a lot of generators. These things operate, pretty much all winter. Snowpack augmentation is what they call it. But because the water cycle is so screwed up, because the West Coast is so strapped for water, they have, we're talking millions and billions of dollars are being pumped into trying to squeeze every last drop of water out of the sky in what is being called the blue gold rush or the water wars. There's a government website called Water 2025. Everybody's heard about owning the weather in 2025. Go look at Water 2025. In fact, I will do that right now. Water 2025. And what you're going to see is this conflict map, okay? And what this conflict map is basically the real version of Mad Max, okay? Carson City around Reno, Sacramento area, Denver, Phoenix, obviously down the corridor. You get the picture. It's bleak. And it says conflict, highly likely. So in the year 2025, the U.S. government expects conflict to be highly likely in these red circles over water. Let that sink in. So how serious is this water cycle problem for real? And who's to blame? Is anybody even going to talk about it? I'm starting to worry that they're not. Because all I ever hear about is CO2 and global warming. And when you really start to look at the big picture, which is why I designed ClimateViewer 3D, was to take a look at the big picture, to really figure it out. What relates to what, where, what goes where. And then I created weathermodificationhistory.com, which I have somewhere up here. And on weathermodificationhistory.com, you really flesh it out to where you can see what technologies are involved. All of the people behind it. My, pretty famous patent list has been on every website on the internet by now. Programs behind it and the laws governing it. This is the most credible website on the internet for this sort of research on weather modification history. So mapped it, timelined it, researched it, and what I personally see as the biggest problem and the biggest relationship of all this is that we really broke the water cycle. Oh, here's a better version of it. Let's open that image up in a new tab. It's still a tiny version. I mean, geez, no one's going to read that. According to the U.S. Department of Interior, many areas in the West face potential water supply crises by 2025. Potential water supply crises and conflict highly likely right there. And literally the military calls it a national security concern. A lot of people are talking about mass migration as a result of climate change. If the David Keese and the Ken Calderas of the world get away with their geoengineering program, which is not about making clouds, it's about making a white haze in the sky. Biggest difference between geoengineering and cloud seeding and weather modification is those guys, Ken Caldera, David Keith, and the Harvard Geoengineering and the Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative, all those geoengineers, they're talking about a white haze, which apparently aircraft are already doing today. Chuck Long said planes are accidentally geoengineering the planet, and it has nothing to do with clouds at all. It's about how the sky is whitened. So don't want to get too far afield. Back to this GMO thing. So the lesson for today is this. The water cycle is not well understood by the powers that be. That because clouds can be made by not only aluminum and mineral dust and metals and soot, carbon black dust, those are cloud seeds, but also bacteria, and bacteria being a really big one. You guys heard of thunderstorm asthma. Well, guess what? It's not just molds and spores up there. It's bacteria, even spiders. Ooh, creepy. But regardless, killing frost causing bacteria with GMOs and pesticides on a worldwide basis, bad for the water cycle, certainly. Then stripping those fields bare, bad for the whole thing. Bad. And then, if you want to really put a death nail in it all, coating the entire Pacific Ocean in plastic and then irradiating the whole damn thing with Fukushima, not too good. Not too good. So, we really need to get our feces consolidated because it's not looking really pleasant for the water cycle. And I don't think anybody's really talking about any of the relationships between, the pesticides, the GMOs, the clouds, the trees, and how climate change people want to focus on gases, not anything you could fix today. So ClimateViewer.com, ClimateViewer.org, WeatherModificationHistory.com, trying to keep it pragmatic, trying to focus on things that we can actually do something about. Things like what you're seeing on screen, the Fukushima meltdown. These are fixable, they're preventable, and we can learn from the past. The problem is nobody really knows the history of weather modification. They're not looking at the real relationships between this, water cycle, who's interrupting it, who's controlling it, and why. And I hope that this has been an informative video that you'll spread around. Again, I'm Jim Lee, ClimateViewer.com. Everything I do is user supported and free of charge. As you can see, there are no advertisements on my website. I code my own website. I do all my own graphics and research. So if you appreciate what I do, you can show your support by donating at the PayPal link at the bottom of every single page. That is paypal.me/ClimateViewer. PayPal.me/ClimateViewer. I would greatly appreciate your support. This is the only support I'd get for the work I do, and I've been doing this for 7 years. I love what I do, and I do it better than anybody. You guys know that stuff. So please continue to support me. Still, a little personal update to finish this up. As some of you know, I did go to that weather modification conference. I've been sick since I left that thing. I've still got pneumonia. You may have heard me wheezing through this hour. And we're still going to do what we got to do. I did just move. Spent the last week literally like cutting holes in ceilings and moving furniture and stuff. I'm still not done moving. So all day, every day with 2 children and a beautiful wife, working my tail off, guys. I will get back to work on the video from the conference. Everybody knows I did record a whole bunch of footage at the Weather Modification Conference in Austin. I have a question for everybody watching this. If you've made it this long, then you obviously care, and I appreciate you for that. So in the comments, let me know. I got 1 or 2 options. And this is me being real, and this is what I'm debating right now. Either I do a small GoFundMe to get enough money to just make the video, make the documentary myself, turn this 3.5 hours into an 1.5 hour movie that explains my Environmental Modification Accountability Act, this guy, and what I was doing at the conference, some footage of that right here. This is at climateviewer.com/nmod. Do I do a small GoFundMe, small-ish GoFundMe, because I've learned instantly that there is no small in freaking documentary, or and make it myself, and it's going to be the best that I can do. I've never made a documentary. I'm not going to be able to produce what in the world are they spraying. Or do I say, combined with the footage I got at the conference already, which is red hot, smoking hot stuff, like this footage here, and it's very good quality, got great audio on most of the footage. Do I do that in myself, or do I look for a sponsor and find somebody who's one of these Hollywood types, independent producers? I don't care, but somebody who could do this the justice it deserves. Because I'm going to be honest with you, this is, it's kind of over my head. Like I was like looking at step 1 documentary, transcribe everything. And I'm like, you mean to tell me I got to write down 3.5 hours worth of video footage, write it all down? Shoot me in the head. But if I decide to do it myself, I'm going to have to do that. And it's going to take a long freaking time. Or if I can find somebody who can produce it, then maybe, I don't know. I don't know what to do. So let me know in the comments what you think I should do. Do a small GoFundMe, just enough to cover usage rights, get a little bit of audio, and produce it myself, or find a partner, a bigger sponsor, somebody who can produce this film using the footage I have and record me explaining the rest and put in some flashy infographics like I'd love to do. Let me know. Guys, I appreciate your support as always. I'm going to continue to do this. I appreciate it. All the love and support I've received in the emails over the last month from everybody who's been concerned about our recent family transition, the breaking into of our former house and stealing of all of our stuff, and the people who have donated, who've helped us out during that time. We have gotten everything in the house. We are on the new fast internet. I hope that this video didn't lag too much. I'm going to review it as a speed test, and maybe we'll have to go back to 720p, but hopefully this was pretty sharp and snappy for a change. So guys, I really appreciate everything. I hope that this video was informative. I hope that it resonated with you. And unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not.